Hi everyone, welcome to the YouTube channel of Get Set Law by IMS. I'm your mentor Sanjana Chauhan, and today let's take a look at CLAT 2024 Logical Reasoning section. My intention for conducting this session for the YouTube community is to help you understand how to approach passages of such nature as were reflecting in CLAT 2024 for the Logical Reasoning section, and maybe take learnings from it. And on the off chance that CLAT 2025 offers passages of the same standard, you might be able to put things in perspective, right? Keep in mind that I am segregating the entire unit into 4 components. The first video will be a discussion on the first passage for logical reasoning, and the subsequent videos will be for the rest of the passages, right? So on and so forth. Another thing that you need to keep in mind is that CLAT 2024 had 4 sets, set A, B, C and D. The difference between the sets was with respect to the jumbling of passages. So the passages and the questions were same across all the sets. The only difference was that what might be passage 1 for set A was maybe passage 3 for set B, so on and so forth, right? So keep that in mind. But otherwise, the component, the content and everything remains the same. Without further delay, let's start discussing. So I have the first passage here for you. I will first talk about the writing style or the genre of the passage, and then we can have a full-fledged discussion, and I'll try explaining what the passage is about. So the first passage here is, again, a socio-political commentary on the status of education system in India and how it is only exacerbating or aggravating the feelings of inadequacy amongst the students. And maybe the author voices his opinion on what are the steps that can be taken, what is the present condition, and what all can be addressed here. Let's start reading it. In a world where aspirations for upward mobility are fervent as a word here applies, means something which is very enthusiastic, right? The opportunities for achieving such dreams remain limited. Now, why the opportunities for achieving such lofty dreams remain limited is expanded in the later part of the passage. Now, when one generation falls short, the mantle of ambition passes to the next. For example, if the first generation is not able to achieve the goals, then the task or the buck is passed on to the next generation, right? So the mantle of ambition passes to the next, embedding within it a heavy burden of responsibility. So obviously, that is a very cumbersome task for the next generation to make sure that it's able to emulate or at least be able to achieve the things that the previous generation was not able to achieve, right? Now, failing to meet these expectations can lead to profound sorrow, and this is where the passage takes a very negative tone on the current system of education and merit as is being viewed, right? And in direct cases, even to suicide. So the burdening of every subsequent generation with the responsibilities can lead such people of those generations feeling very somber, very sorrowful, and in some cases it can eventually lead them to commit suicide, is what the passage says. Now, it's in this very backdrop that coaching institutes assume a significant role. Now, the word significant here, when you read further, implies something negative that the author voices about the coaching institutes. So the author says that in this particular context, the coaching institute and their role becomes very significant because they cultivate an atmosphere of uncertainty, right? So this is very important, of uncertainty among students and parents. Further, there is a stark discrepancy or a gap between the preparation for board exams and competitive tests, all right, amplifying the inequalities that plague the education system. So in a way, the author is trying to say that the coaching institutions and their role, they further the inequalities, the discrepancies, the gaps in the education system. Again, the coaching industry, through its massive marketing campaigns, they further exacerbate. To exacerbate means to further worsen something, right? They further exacerbate the situation. What is the situation being referred to here? The inequalities prevalent in the education system, with some strategies veering into ethical gray areas. So essentially here the author is trying to say that some of the marketing strategies or marketing campaigns employed by the coaching institutes might be unethical. Probably they might lead to students feeling very inadequate, maybe not very intelligent, And this really is not very ethical an approach, right? Read further. The tests which are designed by the coaching institutes are often very more challenging than the standardized exams, right? So they might, in a way, deliberately create very challenging, very difficult tests than the actual paper is, right? So that students are are left feeling very inadequate here, right? Setting the stage for feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt, just what I said, when not conquered. So our educational system is tailored to gauge an individual's merit through examinations. So the fundamental problem which the author feels he has with the education system is that it relies entirely on the merit of a student, basing it on how the student fares in the examinations, right? The problem is not the merit, but the way the merit is determined. So the approach of determining merit is something that is of concern here. Now, again, eminent thinker Michael J. Sandel dubs this system the tyranny of merit, a sentiment which is also echoed by the Supreme Court of India. Upholding the OBC reservation judgment, the court called for a deeper evaluation of the idea of merit. Perhaps, and as the author rightly tries to say, that merit is not something which should be simply determined based on examinations. Merit can have more ways of being determined here. So again, the Supreme Court does call for a deeper evaluation of the idea of merit, highlighting its nuanced nature, that it can have various undertones to it. It can have various interpretations. There can be diverse ways of, checking a student's merit. Now, merit as a concept, however, remains shrouded, but the current status of merit is actually not up to the scratch. It remains shrouded in misunderstanding and often goes unexamined within the school curriculum, right? Now, adapting to new living arrangements, sourcing nourishing meals, battling isolation, and grappling with commutes form the backdrop against which education unfolds. However, the present education system in India, with multiple factors, is not really a very healthy background for the students to realize their merit and to maybe nourish it further or nurture it further, right? Now, later on, the author says, for marginalized communities, right? Marginalized or ostracized communities and gender minorities, right? Now, the author now does emphasize some bit on how caste and the caste system might also play a role in what is being discussed, right? Gender minorities, these hurdles are often amplified. So this situation is all the more worse for people hailing from the gender minority background, right? And from lower castes, given the context of India. Now, social media algorithms. Now, social media again is a factor which the author is trying to highlight here. Social media algorithms further aggravate mental health concerns. So, social media also might be responsible for furthering the mental health problems existing amongst the students, sowing loneliness and impeding attention span and creativity. Obviously, in the context of the passage, social media is also responsible for limiting the attention span of students, and thereby it inhibits creativity. After this, there is a statement which is important. It says technology emerges as a potential equalizer in this landscape. Now, when the author talks about technology, and note how he uses the phrase a potential equalizer, this phrase in this context implies, however, technology kind of somehow or in a way it offsets the limitations that are set in the education system, right? So technology somehow takes care of some of the negatives that are associated with the education system. And how? That is what is discussed subsequently. Online platforms. So now the author is in a way a little appreciative of online platforms because they now offer preparation opportunities from the comfort of one's home. In no way can we infer that this statement has a negative connotation to it. Government curated or market driven content could, the author says, now the author here is talking about possibilities. The government curated or market driven content could usher in a new era of accessibility. So note how technology is now used to end the passage on a slightly more, positive note, because it can actually offset some of the negatives that are associated with the current education system, which only are in a way leading to increased issues of mental health concerns amongst the students, because the system just makes them feel a little inadequate and have them doubt themselves, their capabilities. It's also like exacerbated by the coaching institutions. So this is essentially what the passage is about. Quite analytical in nature. Let's start discussing the question. The first one here. As per the author, which one of the following is not likely leading to suicide amongst the students? Again, I repeat the question. It's asking us to choose an option which is not likely to lead to suicide amongst the students. What this implies is that out of the 4 given options, we have that one option which is not given as a cause for students wanting to commit suicide. And 3 options are there which are likely to have students want to take this extreme step. Alright, look at option A. Incorrect marketing strategies by the coaching institutes. I'll just keep it on the side because we do not really have a lot of information here. B says burdening of ambitions by one generation to another. This, in a very clear-cut language, is mentioned in the first part of the passage, and it does, it says, as is in the passage, it can eventually have students, commit suicide. So this is something we can eliminate because it is likely to lead to suicide amongst the students. Look at C. Creation of hostile environment by the coaching institutes. If this actually has a student feel more inadequate and doubt himself or herself, this again can lead to a student being very sorrowful about not being able to perform well in the tests which are designed by the coaching institutes, and can ultimately lead them to harbor such extreme feelings of wanting to commit suicide. So this also in a way can be eliminated because it's likely to lead to suicide. We have to choose an option which is not likely to lead to suicide. Look at D. Living in a surrounding with different background and culture. Now this as a factor is mentioned which only amplifies the inadequacy amongst the students. This can be inferred from the last part of the passage. Now students who appeared for CLAT 2024 had a big doubt between A and D. While the majority of the students felt that the correct option should be A, while the majority of the students felt that the correct option should be D, living in a surrounding with different background and culture, as this was not clearly given in the passage. And somehow the passage also talks how the incorrect marketing strategies by the coaching institutions veer into ethical gray areas. However, the correct option for this question is A only. And that is so because when we look at the options, we have to choose the problems, the factors which can directly help us understand that these are very, they are very concerning issues which can cause students to, want to take that extreme step. However, A does not directly address it, and hence it is the correct option. We cannot directly say that this particular factor here, which is coaching institutions employing incorrect marketing strategies, it does not directly lead to the students to commit suicide, to harbor such feelings, and hence A is the correct option here. D can be remotely inferred. Casteism, as is implied in the last part of the passage, and especially when you move to new areas, living in a completely different surrounding with different background and culture, can also exacerbate such concerns which are mentioned in the passage. So A is the correct option as it's not likely to lead to suicide amongst the students. Next question. Which of the following is not true about the education system? Alright. As per the author's opinion. Look at A. It is primarily based on the merit of the students. This is clearly given in the passage that the education system as is existing today is determining a student's smartness or capabilities on the basis of the student's merit. So we can obviously eliminate it because we are looking for the option which is not true about the education system. B. Merit of the students is not the determining factor. While we are saying that option A is correct as per the education system, option B, which is actually the reverse of option A, therefore has to be the correct option for this question, right? It has to be the correct option for this question because merit of the students is the quintessential determining factor here, right? It's the je ne sais quoi of the education system these days, right? So this is the correct option and we cannot say it is not the determining factor, which is why we have to choose this as a correct option. C says examination plays a pivotal role in the education system. Clearly, we can eliminate it because it is given in the passage. D. An individual's merit cannot be identified without examination. Again, we can eliminate this because the author does agree with it. Like the individual's merit cannot be identified without examination. This is very much reflective of how the education system is now functioning in the society. All right, so the correct option for this question will be B. Merits of the students is not the determining factor. This is something that the author does not agree with, or this is something which is not true about the education system in the passage. Third question. Which of the following strengthens the argument regarding the idea of merit as per the above mentioned passage? Now, the idea of merit is echoing in the Supreme Court of India's, perspective about the idea of merit, and the fact that the Supreme Court of India has also termed it as having a lot of nuances to it, right? So something which is more eclectic, more diverse. It can have multiple interpretations to it, and this is something that I discussed also while explaining the passage. So let's look if any of the options align with our line of thinking here. A. True merit is multifaceted and extends beyond performance in a single competitive examination. This is something which is also echoed by the author and by the Supreme Court of India, and therefore A is the correct option so far. Let's look at B, C, and D. Let's try exhausting them for us to be very sure about A. B. Pervasive inequalities can only be identified with the help of a single competitive examination. This is contrary to what the author emphasizes about the idea of merit, so we can eliminate it. C. True merit is not multifaceted and does not extend beyond performance. Of course, this runs contrary to option A. Again, we can eliminate it because true merit is multifaceted, right? It has many nuances to it. D. The school education ensures the proper implementation of the idea of merit. That is absolutely incorrect in the passage because the school education system and the surrounding complexities of it, now the different things that the student has to face in the backdrop of school education system is not really reflective of the true idea of merit because it just has everything boiling down to one determiner of a student's merit, which is examination system. So again, option D is not strengthening, and we can eliminate D. The correct option here will be option A. Look at the next question. Which of the following is correct regarding the inequalities mentioned by the author? All right, let's look at option A. There is no difference between the preparation of board and competitive examination, right? This is actually incorrect as per the passage because there is a stark gap. There is a lot of difference between the preparation of board and competitive examination. And this is something which is also finding resonance in the passage. So we can eliminate this. B says, education system accommodates the inequalities. Is this correct regarding the inequalities mentioned in the passage? No, right? Education system accommodates the inequalities. This is a very extreme option to choose, right? C. Competitive examination leads to social equality. In fact, it leads to the reverse of it. Competitive examinations furthered by, the marketing strategies of the coaching institutions, they lead to more of social inequalities and not social equality. So this too is incorrect. D says, there are existing inequalities already. So, right, so the author starts the passage like this. He's already talking or emphasizing the existing inequalities. And then he also shifts the emphasis on the job that is being done by the coaching institutes, which is something he views in a negative light. So the coaching institutions are already furthering those inequalities amongst the students by having them, have a self-doubt and all of that. So there are existing inequalities which are enlarged by the competitive examination. This is absolutely correct regarding the inequalities mentioned by the author. D is the correct option. 5. Which of the following statements reflect the use of online platform for education as per the author? Okay. Now keep in mind how I took a separate 2 minutes to describe the last two statements. Remember the part which talks about technology being a potential equalizer in this landscape, where I told you that the author is now talking about how technology can hopefully offset some of the limitations that the education system and its interpretation of merit has, right? So what is the exact use of online platform emphasized by the author in the passage? It is that it provides the students with the opportunity to prepare for exams. As simple as that. That's a very plain reading of the statement. Look at A. It provides equal opportunity to all the students irrespective of caste or creed. I'll keep it on the side because there was a lot of confusion among students between option A and option B. Look at B, it encourages students to prepare for examination, and we'll keep this on the side as well. It's no bad answer here. C, it should be the only means to education is quite extreme, right? And we often tell students to be very mindful and cautious of options containing very extreme words or quantifiers such as only, all, always, never. And that does not mean that you have to eliminate such options blindly. Your task is to maybe go back to the passage and verify if you can infer these statements from there. But in this context, we can eliminate C. D, it cannot be accessed by majority of the people. No, accessibility is something that the author does talk about. Obviously, it is emerging as a potential equalizer, right? So there is no discrimination. There are no other factors which can be a hindrance to the students' growth, right? When it comes to technology and online education platforms. So we can eliminate D also. Now, between A and B is a better option given the context in which it is written. Now, why students tend to choose A and why A is incorrect is firstly, when we talk about technology being a potential equalizer, we're not talking about equalizer in the sense of very equality orientation for caste, right? This is incorrect. I've already told you multiple times that potential equalizer here talks about how technology can offset the limitations of the education system and its interpretation of merit or the idea of merit, right? So this potential equalizer is not referring to equalizing the fact that everybody should have access to everything. Hence, A in this context is incorrect. It cannot be inferred. Correct option is B. This is how technology and online platform will help students prepare for examination. Because it also says government curated or market-driven content can usher in a new era, right? So you remember the last statement. So this leads us to mark B as the correct option. 6. Which one of the following is not a challenge for quality education? So out of the 4 options, there will be 3 options which are being portrayed as challenges for quality education, and there will be 1 option which is not a hindrance to quality education. Let's look at the options. A. Influence of social media. Yes, it has been portrayed in the passage as something which can affect our attention span and inhibit creativity, right? So obviously, it is a challenge, so we can eliminate it. B says mental health of the students and parents. Obviously, this is something which is broadly emphasized multiple times in the passage, so we can eliminate this also. C, availability of online resources. Nowhere does the author in the passage emphasize that there is a lack or dearth of online resources for the students to have access to. And this, therefore, is a correct option because it's clearly not given as a challenge for quality education. Look at D, lack of competitive atmosphere amongst the peers. This is a challenge for quality education. It can be inferred from just how, the marketing strategies of the coaching institutions are further exacerbating the feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt among students, and also making the market more competitive for them to flourish. So D2 is a potential challenge for quality education to come about. So we can eliminate D as well. Correct option will be C. So yes, this was a discussion on the first passage for CLAT 2024 Logical Reasoning section. I hope you've understood the points. I hope you've understood the techniques I've used to eliminate the bad options and maybe arrive at the correct option, right? Keep in mind, there can be 2 options which can be really close and confusing, but we have to choose a better option of the 2. Stay tuned for the next video.